And you would have thought that Jesus Christ would have gone to the church to pick from the church. Jesus didn't do that because he recognized that he had a problem with the church already. And these are the people in the church who was after him anyway. So, to look, he went there. You thought he would have gone there to look for some faithful members. You would have gone to find hard-working evangelists, dedicated deacons, faithful elders. Jesus chose 12. Not a single one of them was a member of the church. Not a single one of them was a member of the church. Jesus selected 12 ordinary men. None of them were Pharisees. Not a single one of them was a priest. These were fishermen, tax collector, and such alike. These were ordinary people he chose to be a part of his team. The question we must ask ourselves is why? Let's look at the team that Jesus picked. He picked James and John, they were brothers. Jesus called them, you remember what Jesus called them? Sons of thunder. These are not people you mess with. Another one is Matthew. Matthew was a tax collector. In those days, tax collectors were hated because at that time they were collecting tax from the Jews and giving it to the Romans, who were their oppressors, so they did not like them. Then there is Judas, and you know who Judas is already. Judas was a shady character. Jesus did not handpick him, but he volunteered. Jesus didn't stop him, so he was on the team. So we are getting ready for the second coming of Christ. Everybody is invited on the team. Everybody is invited on the team. Then you have Thomas. Thomas was, you know who Thomas was. He doubts everything. He have to see things to believe things. And he was a talker also. He talk a lot, but he do nothing. Just like some board member, you go to the board member, they'll talk, but to go on the road, to evangelize, these are not the guys we would put on our team. The message, Peter would be the last person you would have put on your team. When Jesus invited Peter to join his team, Jesus already knew his weaknesses. Jesus knew his shortcomings. But Jesus did not allow his weaknesses or his shortcomings to prevent him from becoming a part of the team. If you and I had background information on Peter, we would bypass him. If you knew that you could not rely on him to back you up, if you knew that Peter would deny you when you needed him most, you would not put him on your team. The question is, why did Jesus allow this guy to come on the team when he knew of his shortcomings? Not only did he deny Christ 3 times, but Peter is the only disciple of the 12 that Jesus called a devil. The only disciple on the 12 Jesus called a devil. As bad as Judas is, Jesus didn't call him that. But we're going into Matthew 16, 21 to 23. Matthew 16, 21 to 23. And we are reading from the King James Version. And I now read, from that time forth began Jesus to show unto his disciples how that he must go unto Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders, priests, and scribes, and be killed and risen again on the third day. So right here you see why Jesus Christ did not use anybody from the church. Then Mr. Peter took him, began to rebuke him. Did you hear that? Peter took Jesus and started to rebuke him. He took Jesus, but he took Jesus, like he would say, in simple terms, he took Jesus aside and said, listen to me. Those things that you're talking, you better stop talking those things. Nothing like that is going to happen. Nothing like that is going to happen. So stop talking about that, because I'm here. Watch out, I'm telling you. So, he said, be it far from thee. But Jesus turned and said unto Peter, get thee behind thee, Satan. Thou art an offense unto me, for thou savorest not the things that be of God, but those that of men, to be of men. So, and yet still, Jesus kept him on the team. Yet still, God wants him as a part of the team. This is the second time that Jesus used this word, get thee behind thee, Satan. One, that was the first time was in the wilderness when Satan tried to tempt him. He said, get thee behind thee, Satan. So Peter was the first disciple that Jesus Christ called a devil. So what happened with Peter, brothers and sisters? What is happening to Peter? Satan infiltrated Peter, and Peter did not even know. Satan infiltrated Peter, and Peter did not even know that. Satan infiltrated him and was taking and was talking through him. Peter is not aware what is happening to him spiritually. He is not aware of what is happening to him spiritually. But when Jesus heard the voice of Peter speaking to him, Jesus knew it was Satan who was speaking to him through Peter. So Jesus did not address Peter. He said, get thee behind thee, Satan. He addressed Satan because the devil was talking through, and Peter and Jesus Christ recognized the voice of him. So that's why he discouraged Christ. So without Peter aware of what happened, Satan was already in control of him. He's the master of infiltration on the team. And he tends to use one or two ways to discourage. It is safe to keep Peter on the team? Or should we take a vote and remove 234? Satan asks for you. If you notice, it reminds us of Job. Satan could not touch him until he asked. Listen to this. Of the 12, he wanted Peter. He had to settle with Judas, but he wanted the brightest of the pack. He wanted the brightest of the pack. He wanted the brightest in the church. He wanted the best in the church, the most effective member of the church. That's who he wanted. No wonder some bright young people in the church fell on their faces, and you wonder how on the God earth these people fell. Satan wanted them. They told me that moths are attracted to bright lights. You know what? When you have a bulb outside during the course of the night, you go there and they're full around the light. But comes daylight, nobody is there. None of them is there. They like bright light. Moth like bright light, and so is Satan. When there are bright light in the church, Satan is like a roaring lion. Do you know how a lion hunts? Do you recognize how a lion hunts? Okay, he waits, and he stalks you until he gets you. That's how he works. Every one of you who have made commitments to God and are faithful and true and are dedicated, though you may have your fault, it is you Satan wants. Though you may have your fault, but it is you who Satan wants. In verse 32, we are still in Luke. In verse 32, Jesus said, and I want you to listen to this. Jesus said to Peter, "But I prayed for you. But I prayed for you." Brothers and sisters, I prayed for you that thy faith fail not. And where thou art, and listen to this too, and when thou art converted, strengthen thy brethren. You heard what Jesus said? I prayed for you, but when you become converted, oh God, have mercy upon us. The prayer you prayed for Peter to rescue his soul. Jesus Christ put a rooster to save Peter in place. But Peter didn't know that. Had it not for the rooster, he would have lost his soul. We go to John chapter 18, 25 to 27. John 18, 25 to 27. Peter was among them when Jesus was arrested, and you know what Peter did. As they were taking Jesus to Caiaphas' house, the high priest, he followed them from a distance because he was afraid. He stopped where they had a fire because apparently it was cold, and he was there warming his hands with them. One of them said to him, "Are you not one of the disciples?" Peter said, "No, I'm not." Someone already identified him, and he said no. The third time, one of the servants who was in the Garden of Gethsemane and was related to the high priest that Peter cut off his ears, said, man, I saw you in the... Peter said, no, I was... A matter of fact, Peter cursed. Peter cursed a lot of bad words. But the man, when he heard that, immediately the cock crew. Immediately the cock crew. The first time he lied, he knew he lied. He did not have what it takes to sacrifice for the Lord. The second time he lied, and the third time the rooster crowed. When Peter heard the rooster crowed, he remembered what Jesus told him. In Desire of Ages, Ellen White said, at the moment he looked at Jesus, Jesus looked at him. He knew then that he messed up. He knew then that he messed up. And he wept like a child. I was blind in his, he could not see. He was trying to go back to the Garden of Gethsemane, where he sat there and cried like a child. And he was there begging God for forgiveness, begging God, because when the cock crew, he recognized what he did. Questions are, where are the roosters? Where are the roosters gone? The church. Where are the roosters when we blunder? We are no better than Peter. Jesus is not letting you go. Jesus is not letting you go. We left Peter in the garden. He would like to ask Jesus for forgiveness, but Jesus was dead. Jesus was dead at that time. Sunday morning, Mary went to the tomb and found it empty. The text said, disappointed, he and John went back. Mary lingered around. Still crying, she saw a tall image. He thought it was the gardener. She said, where have you laid him? And the person said, Mary. At that time, she recognized the voice to be that of Jesus. And she said, Rabboni, which means master. And went to hug Jesus. But Jesus said, no, don't touch me. I have not ascended to my Father. But Jesus did not leave her like that. Jesus gave Mary a message. And I want to listen to the message that Jesus gave. And it's taken from Mark 16:7. Mark chapter 16, verse 7. He said, go, you can mess up with God, but God is not keeping no malice with you. God said, go and tell my disciples and Peter. Peter and a couple of the guys went fishing again. He said, well, they killed Jesus. Let me go back on my old job. So they go fishing. They spend all night out there fishing. They did not catch anything. They were returning on their boat towards shore. And as they came to shore from a night of failure, they saw smoke coming from shore. As they came closer, they saw an image. When they looked carefully, it was the resurrected Jesus Christ. Who told them to cast their net on the other side? They caught a lot of fishes. They couldn't even hardly bring it to shore. Jesus was there preparing breakfast for them. Jesus had a fire going, and he had put fish, so he had roast fish and bread. He was preparing breakfast for them. So without them knowing, Jesus Christ was there waiting. Don't care how far you've been, and you're coming back, Jesus will wait for you. So Jesus was there, and he prepared breakfast. Ellen White said that they ate in silence. Peter could not look on Jesus in the eye because he was guilty. But Jesus broke the silence. Notice who Jesus addressed at the time. Notice who he addressed. At that time, it was 11 of them left. Judas had already gone. So it was 11. Jesus said, Simon, son of Jonah, do you love me more than these? Brothers and sisters, the reason for asking this question is that the rest of the disciples did not deny Christ. It is only he who denied Christ. So he asked him, and he asked him in the presence of the other disciples. The reason, brothers and sisters, and he answered Christ and said, yes, Lord, you know that I love thee. And Jesus said unto him, feed my lamb. Jesus said to him a second time, Simon Peter, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? He said, thou knowest, you know that I love you. Jesus said, feed my sheep. Jesus said the third time, Simon, son of Jonas, lovest thou me? Peter was grieved. That simply means Peter was upset. He was vexed. He was boiling. In other words, he became angry because it was the third time that Jesus asked him the same question. And he was wondering, why are you asking me these questions same time? I mean, 3 times. And he answered Jesus and said, yes, I love you. Jesus said, feed my sheep. Brothers and sisters, 3 times he denied Christ. There are 3 times he denied Christ. And 3 times Jesus restored him. I don't miss that. 3 times he denied Christ, and 3 times Jesus restored him. Three times he blundered, 3 times Jesus restored him. By the way, Jesus restored him in the presence of the disciples, and he did it for a reason. Because Jesus was getting ready to go. Jesus was getting ready to go. And there's someone he needs to run his church. And the last person they would have picked to run the church would be Peter, because Peter had denied Christ and all these things. But he restored Peter in their presence, so they don't have nothing to say. Because they didn't even know why Jesus did it in their presence. That man, we would have said that man have no part in this church because we can't rely on him. This man, so Jesus restored him in the presence of his enemy, and thou anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Jesus will never, never give up on Peter. 3 times he messed up, 3 times he restored him. Jesus saw something in Peter that Peter didn't even see in himself. And not the disciples didn't see that either. Even though the devil tried to use him, he is the only disciple that walks on water. Peter is the only disciple that walks on water. Not only disciple, he is the only living human being had ever have enough faith to walk on water. The only human being have enough faith to walk on water. Jesus said, you mess up, but I need you on my team. You blunder, but... And the Holy Ghost came up and I'm telling you,